Okay, so in this mini crit we have Christian, Young Min, and David on the same sheet. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think this is my favorite sheet so far of the entire class. Um, let's start over here just because we've seen this guy already, Christian. So my last comments about the wrinkles in the last crit up here feeling kind of arbitrary. I still think they're a little busy here, but looking at the contrast that I see in what you're doing with materials here, I don't mind it quite as much. But still, there might be one or two areas that I would tone down a bit. If it's busy everywhere, then you don't really look anywhere, you know. And you have enough going on in the metal pieces up here that, you know, for me, I'd maybe leave a little bit of blank around the high contrast area in the eye. But other than that, really not many things to say critique-wise. Silhouette-wise, I think down here, things tend to get a little safe and a little kind of more normal and boring. So I'm wondering maybe if there's something you could do to break up the kind of plating down here, the way that you did in the shoulder, right? Just to keep things kind of consistent, right? So the way I feel now is there's busy, 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 and then the one area that contrasts that, the moment of rest, is in the feet. And I think maybe you could reverse that thinking. So if you added a little more busy down here, then you have busy, 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 and you smooth out some of the wrinkles up here. Now your high area of contrast, texture, detail-wise, will be in the head, and I think that can make it look a little bit stronger. But overall, I love the material choices that you're messing with. Seeing that kind of what each thing is made out of clearly is really nice. Depending on the exposure to the elements, like for example, and I know this probably isn't done, but the amount of oxidation that you see on the metal pieces, I would expect to see a little more like kind of speck hit on the edges, right? And it looks like you have a little bit, but I'd expect to see more scratches, more wear, that kind of thing, just to show the age of the pieces a little bit. But that's easy stuff to do compared to what you have. So you've done a lot of the hard part already. And the other thing I would say is, when you have a character in a game, one of the things that always happens on a lot of games is you have the character art team and you have the environment art team, and at some point they need to come together and the character needs to stand out in the environment. And a lot of times the character team maybe hasn't pushed or progressed or thought about the way the environments are going to be, or maybe the environments are unknown at that point, or vice versa. And you end up with this kind of safe middle value thing in this safe middle value world. So if this was a character that was going to be, say, on a jungle planet, I think it's great, because in the jungle you can have all kinds of, you know, cooler hues, greens and purples, and warmer hues in like flora and things like red and purple and things like that. But you know, this guy would stand out in that environment. But if he's supposed to be like kind of a desert Bedouin character, there's the practical world where he would want to fit in with the desert landscape to escape predators or to sneak up on prey, you know, to blend in with the environment. But in the context of a game, it would make this guy as an enemy very difficult to see. Which may or may not be what you want. So I would implore you to take whatever the base color you have here and just try shifting the hue and seeing what you get. See what happens when you shift the hue around to see what you get, and see if you get any interesting kind of combinations in the hue of the kind of scarf mask thing and the hue of the shirt. Maybe even just accents on the scarf, the cloth under the belt, and then the hanging cloth here over the thigh. Maybe just little accents like that. But overall, it looks really great. Great bakes. You know, it's very clear to see what all the pieces are. So really outstanding work. Great work. Now, moving over here, you did something here that I've never done before, but that I'm actually going to start doing. So thank you. You've influenced me. And that's just taking the simple ZBrush render and throwing just a thick line over it, just to kind of see how he reads as a cartoon. Now, overall, what I think could help the the presentation of this character is when I look at the individual drawings, they don't feel quite as strong as the 3D representation. And again, like I've been saying, that not all things have to be the same, but I think what would make this a real home run for something like a studio to look at is if you have a character like this that you can turn around, that you can present well, and then you also have drawings that support that character well. And in the drawings, I don't mean like a technically precise drawing. I mean a drawing that really depicts the character's emotion and stuff like that. It would make you a very attractive, valuable kind of commodity in the eyes of a studio. But the paint over looks great. You know, the thick black line over all of it looks really great. Lends like a nice cartoony feel. I think he's looking really good. The one thing I would say in terms of animation is to start thinking about the animation style that you want. So how he's gonna move, a lot of the ways that he can move will be determined by his silhouette. Immediately Wreck-It Ralph comes to mind because he's got like the giant big hands, right? And if you go through and look at kind of the way his costume is broken up with his overalls and kind of the space, you know, with the t-shirt and the hands and things like that, this guy doesn't have that with this puffy jacket. So it would be something to consider, just to kind of take him and either pose the model or draw something accurate to these proportions. Because like when you look at this guy, he's got the same idea, but you know, like the legs, the crotch is really low, and here it's way higher, and you know, just how would these guys move, right? And that's what you want to try to depict next, I think, because for an animated thing, you really want to consider, you know, movement and gesture and how to get a complete flow through the character. So that's probably what I would try to do next. But overall, really good work, and I like the color separation that you're doing. The simple red, blue, green color scheme works well, and if you you know, if you want easy contrast, like value-wise, I think these could be pushed apart a little bit. You know, like let's see if I go like this. Oh, I can't do it right now because I'm only in male. But if you desaturate this, really look at these values, and I feel like they're really close. You could take one and pump it up more. You know, probably the red, and pump up the value just a little bit and separate it from the jacket and the jeans a little bit more. It will also give you a way to kind of frame the face a little nicer. But overall, looking really nice, man. Both projects are looking really good. Super strong. All right, young men, I like both of these ideas, and your characterizations in 2D are starting to approach a level of appeal that is really great. So I'm not sure which one you're going to choose. That's up to you. I think both of them can really show a lot of cool characteristics of this character. For me personally, I would say I like the idea of having a little more exposed skin, right? No matter which character you choose, because it gives you opportunities to have small, quick storytelling things like her stitches. Now, another thing I would say you could take a look at is if you look at Carter Goodrich's designs for Hotel Transylvania, for The Bride of Frankenstein. It's kind of a take on, it's like a Housewives of New Jersey kind of take on The Bride of Frankenstein, and it's a very interesting thing because he's doing exactly what we're doing, where he's taking the character and putting them in another context than we're used to seeing them. And what he did was he really stereotyped completely what is a real housewife from New Jersey. Okay, now let's apply these Bride of Frankenstein ideas to that. And now you have an opportunity, and you're starting to do the exact same thing. And you can see it in the costume choices that you're using, and some of the, you know, even some of the pose and posture that you're using. So you're starting that kind of thinking. I would implore you to maybe take a look at the way he used those same devices. And now think about 50s mom. Other than this polka dot dress, I don't really know that she's a 50s mom. Things that you can do with the hair more. So when I think 50s mom, and I know Bride of Frankenstein has that like long hair back, but throw that out and see what a 50s mom kind of helmet hairdo might look like. Maybe she'll have like pearls around her neck. Maybe she'll have, you know, some other attributes, you know, maybe to be totally stereotypical, an apron, right? So look at things like that that are kind of throwback things and see if you can incorporate that thinking. And I feel like you've done that a little more with the modern mom, with kind of the papoose she's got and the kind of baby bag, you know. But maybe there's a stroller, and since she's kind of macabre, maybe the stroller is actually made out of, you know, weird things like bones or finger bones, or you know, stuff like that. Maybe there's little things like that. Since the Bride of Frankenstein is kind of macabre, maybe the baby is going to be kind of macabre too, and all the baby accessories are going to be a little macabre. So it's weird. In this one, I feel like you could bring more of the real world of the 50s, or the perception of the 50s, into the Bride of Frankenstein. And in this one, I feel like you could bring more of the Bride of Frankenstein into your kind of real world choices, right? So kind of an interesting juxtaposition. But I really like both ideas, and I think the way you've depicted the characters is really great. I mean, you clean up these drawings and they're just about ready to present. So nice work. David, great progress on this guy. You know, all I can say is wow. I love the color choices that you have. A lot of it is actually kind of how I imagined it when I saw your first black and white pieces, and I think you're doing some really cool things to make certain aspects stand out. The only thing I would say really color choice wise is I know he's got kind of this tank top on, and he's got the, you know, kind of the white backpack. I would maybe look at ways to separate those a little bit more. I see that you've added a lot of dust and dirt, you know, to this, but just to make it apparent, like if I squint, it's not apparent that these two are two separate kind of things. Maybe a specular highlight on this, or maybe some kind of decoration on the white plastic slash metal could be helpful, you know. So for example, you know, the hazard tape, the yellow and black hazard tape, if there was something like that, like something to edge it so that you could see kind of wrapped around the sides or something like that, then it would be very clear that this is kind of a separate thing. The other thing is thinking about hooking that on with a buckle. I know initially we talked a little bit about potentially having that thing animate and be autonomous. Well, he wouldn't want to have a buckle per se, and a buckle maybe feels a little out of place for something like that high tech to be strapped on. So maybe if there's another little, like, you know, almost like something that brings that high tech around to the front so that he can hit a button and that thing kind of like just pulls apart, you know. So just thinking about the context of this, because what makes this nice is the juxtaposition of, you don't assume that an old Einstein-y looking dude is going to have something like that, right? So the juxtaposition of those two things seems pretty nice. But that's a minor nitpicky kind of detail. Overall, I think it's looking really super strong. You know, I think he looks great. Really great work.